Word. So what will happen is I will hit the start button on the stopwatch on your first word. You're going to do great. It's yours.
Everyone is susceptible to addiction. Some common addictions include caffeine, alcohol, food, money, and medications. Good morning. My name is Anna Claire Chappell, and today I'll be discussing a crisis that is occurring all around the world, opioid addiction. The American Society of Addiction Medicine defines addiction as a treatable chronic medical disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. People with addiction use substances or engage in behaviors that become compulsive and often continue despite harmful consequences. Some addictions are inconvenient, some are dangerous, and others are deadly. Using opioids can easily lead to addiction, and in severe cases, the consequence is an overdose. Opioids include prescription painkillers, such as oxycodone, hydrocodone, codeine, morphine, and fentanyl, and illegal drugs, such as heroin. According to an article from the American Society of Anesthesiologists, opioids attach to proteins called opioid receptors on nerve cells in the brain, spinal cord, gut, and other parts of the body. When this happens, the opioids block pain messages sent from the body through the spinal cord to the brain. Another article entitled, How Do People Become Addicted to Opioids, from the Truth Organization, states that addiction occurs when opioids block feelings of pain and trigger a release of dopamine, which is the chemical in the body responsible for handing out gold stars to the brain. Except it doesn't last, which makes the brain want even more gold stars, which can start a dangerous cycle, even if the point of taking the pills is pain relief, not feeling rewarded. The more people ingest opioids, the higher their tolerance to them becomes. This means they become dependent on them. So, why don't people just stop taking them? Withdrawal symptoms are extremely unpleasant. The results of trying to stop taking opioids are commonly compared to symptoms of the flu: aching, fever, diarrhea, vomiting, sweating, and chills. And throughout all this pain, opioid users know that there is one thing out there that could instantly make all their pain go away. Let's look at an example.
My son Steve did not want to die. He wanted to get well. He tried really hard to get well, but his prescription opioids killed him. We found a Post-it note that he had written about his opioids. At first, it was a lifeline. Now it is a noose around my neck. You never expect that you're going to lose a child. It's all out of order.
Thousands of other people are in the same situation as Steve. Opioid addiction is a severe problem, not only in our state, but across the entire globe. In our state, Mississippi, there were 177 opioid-related overdoses in 2018. The same year, there was a total of 47,000 opioid-related overdoses in the United States. And there were over 390,000 opioid-related deaths around the world. Opioid addiction is an ongoing problem. So that brings us to the question, how do we reduce opioid addiction? Scientists have recently discovered a device that could eventually be the end of opioid addiction: non-invasive brain stimulation. It has been discovered that neurobiological functions are responsible for craving and addiction. Basically, brain pathways control feelings of pain, pleasure, decision-making, craving, and addiction. Advancements in science can help addicted individuals to stop using opioids. One example of a non-invasive brain stimulation device is a neurostim system bridge. This device blocks signals from the spinal cord to reduce the symptoms of opioid withdrawal. It begins to work in only 10 minutes. According to its creators from Innovative Health Solutions, the NSS-2 bridge is a percutaneous nerve field stimulator device system that can be used as an aid to reduce the symptoms of opioid withdrawal through application to branches of cranial nerves 5, 7, 9, and 10, as well as branches of the occipital nerves identified by transillumination. To begin, non-invasive brain stimulation is a reliable solution because it has been proven to be effective. The neurostim system bridge is FDA approved. Additionally, while extensive trials have yet to be performed on the device, data has shown that 88% of patients successfully transitioned away from opioids after only 5 days of use. This method is successfully moving opioid users away from the drug and helping to reduce their addiction. Despite its effectiveness, some individuals argue that the device is too expensive. The device is sold for around $595, so depending on the clinic it is prescribed from, the cost can range from $600 to $800. However, the device is already fully covered by many insurance companies, and as the device gains popularity and approval from the FDA, it is likely that more insurance companies will begin to cover it. Furthermore, the price of the device can eventually be reduced by lobbying pharmaceutical companies and federal grants. Also, the cost of this device is relatively low when compared to other addiction treatment options, such as pain program release centers and surgical procedures. Both of these other methods can cost thousands of dollars. Since this device is effective in reducing opioid addiction, it is worth the price. With increased research, time, money, and jobs, the neurostim system bridge and other non-invasive brain stimulation devices could end opioid addiction. In order for this to successfully happen, it is mandatory that doctors prescribe these devices to individuals who are suffering from addiction. It is nearly impossible to stop taking opioids and deal with the withdrawal symptoms without some method of treatment. Non-invasive brain stimulation allows addicts to relieve their pain without consuming lethal opioids. Moreover, opioid addiction is a massive problem for people all over the world. Thousands of people die every year because they are unable to face the excruciating withdrawal symptoms of opioids. These senseless deaths have to stop. Non-invasive brain stimulation devices like the neurostim system bridge can reduce opioid addiction. Devices like this one can help end the fatal cycle of gold stars once and for all, and help individuals in situations like Steve to get their lives back before it's too late. Thank you.
Woohoo! All right, let me hit the pause recording button. And I'll begin recording this, or hit the stopwatch on your first word.
Hello and good morning. My name is Jeffrey Lewis, and today I will be speaking about the opioid epidemic and how this global problem can be solved. But first, I would like to share a story about a young adult named Christopher Parado. Chris was an 18-year-old rising baseball player and academic student. However, in 2007, Chris was in a minor car accident, which resulted in minor back pain and prescribed opioids to help the pain. Over the next 2 years, Christopher became addicted and started taking 25 pills a day. Christopher later overdosed and passed away at the age of 22 in 2011, leaving his mother without a son. I share this story to serve two purposes. One is a warning. Opioids can be highly addicting without the proper care and treatment. The second is to show the effects of opioid abuse. With a show of hands, how many of you would say that opioids cause more problems than solving them? Abusing any type of drug is dangerous and will always have negative side effects. This type of abuse is happening throughout the nation and around the world, where patients abuse opioids for minor or major pains. This problem arises through physicians prescribing patients opioids instead of other non-addicting treatments. Opioids can unintentionally become addicting because they trigger the release of endorphins. Endorphins are the neurotransmitters in your brain that numb you from feeling pain and can boost feelings of pleasure, according to Mayo Clinic. Once the opioid starts to wear off, some users may find themselves wanting more, thus creating their addiction. In 2017, the United States had 46,800 people overdose on opioids, and prescribed opioids cover 40% of the total deaths, which totals out to be 18,720 people. In front of me is a statistical graph of all overdose death rates involving all types of opioids. Any opioid, which is the lime green line, peaks at 15 deaths per 100,000. Other opioids, such as fentanyl, tramadol, and etc., peaks at 9 deaths per 100,000. Prescription opioids peaks at 5.5 deaths per 100,000, and heroin peaks at 5 deaths per 100,000. In 2017, the United States population sat at 325 million Americans. To put this all into perspective, all opioids account for 46,800 deaths. 40% of opioid overdoses are prescription-related deaths. Around the world, opioid overdoses are a shared problem between countries. In front of me are two graphs representing the opioid epidemic globally. On the left shows that opioids are the leading cause in drug overdoses, with 109,000 deaths, with other major drugs such as cocaine and amphetamine totaling at just below 12,000 deaths annually. On the right shows a global map of deaths per 100,000 individuals for each country, with the United States totaling at 18.75 deaths per 100,000 and Libya totaling at 8.2 deaths per 100,000 individuals. The opioid epidemic is clearly predominant in the United States. Other countries at risk include Australia with 5 deaths per 100,000 and Russia with 6 deaths per 100,000. While there are multiple treatment programs for opioid addictions, I believe the way to effectively reduce opioid addiction is to provide alternatives for physicians. The question then arises, how can we reduce opioid addiction? When we feel pain, such as touching a hot coffee cup, it comes from sensory receptors in our skin, which sends a message via nerve fibers to the spinal cord and then to the brain where pain is registered. Nerves are the reason we feel pain, such as when someone has post-surgical pain in which the nerves are damaged after a tough surgery. This pain can last a few weeks to even a few months. For this reason, many people who finish surgery are often prescribed months of opioids to numb the pain. However, to reduce dependency on opioids, physicians need an alternative to opioids to help treat pain. One recent invention, the Sprint device, is a drug-free technological gadget that sends electrical impulses to the wearer's pain spots. While using the Sprint device, the wearer can control the level of stimulation with the handheld remote. This new invention can cover most of the common pain spots, nerve trauma, and can even help with phantom limb pain. The Sprint device has the potential to effectively reduce prescribed opioid addiction. This past December, the device had been prescribed for the 1,000th time. Out of these 1,000 patients, 74% reported a 50% reduction in pain. Now, I would like to show you a video of the device in action.
Nice, last one. All right, I've got good news and bad news.
Whatever it is, just tell me, please.
Well, I'll start with the bad. Looks like this will be the end of our time together. Your shoulder's completely healed. You're back to your old self, Spencer James. If there was any residual nerve damage, we'd know by now, especially given the intensity of the Jamboree games. You'd have neck pain, aggressive muscle weakness, full numbness in your hand.
In this clip, the protagonist, Spencer, was shot in the right shoulder and had surgery to get the bullet removed. While working out, the physical therapist pictured on the right is controlling the electrical impulses that are being sent to Spencer's right shoulder. In the end of the clip, the physical therapist stated that if he was not completely healed, he would be feeling numbness in his hand and pain in his shoulder, none of which he has. While it is worth noting he had a few months of physical therapy, the device is still being used to help ease the pain, which is its primary goal. By providing physicians and patients with more options, we can effectively reduce opioid addiction. This device has the accuracy to target specific pain locations, which allows the wearer to alleviate the pain, whereas opioids numb me from feeling pain, causing a dependency. With the total amount of prescribed opioids being reduced, 40% of opioid-related deaths will dramatically reduce, thus reducing our global opioid epidemic. Thank you.
Right. Great job, Jeffrey. Great job. I'm going to hit the stop record. I will begin.
I stutter, right?
That's perfectly fine, brother. Just do your best, and it's going to be outstanding. I will hit the start button on the stopwatch on your first word. You have the floor.
Hello and good day. I am Luis Rosales, and today I'll be discussing the impact of opioid addiction and how this global problem can be solved. Let's first begin by replacing this image of opioids with a magical button. Now, imagine having that magical button in front of you, and with a simple push, all your body's aches and pains would go away in a matter of seconds? What if your pain was suddenly replaced with a euphoric feeling? What if that same button can take away every insecurity, worry, painful memory, sadness, and stress in your life? Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, it is. Because the allure of this false sense of freedom and pleasure can have many fall into the dangers of opioid addiction, as it is highly addictive. Consequently, this issue has become a world health crisis due to its negative consequences, including fatal overdoses, an increase in teen opioid addiction, as well as the rising incidence of neonatal opioid withdrawal syndrome from opioid abuse during pregnancy. The increase in injected opioids have also contributed to the spread of HIV and hepatitis C. That said, we will focus on the prevalence of prescription and illicit opioid abuse among the youth. In the US, opioid addiction has become a large issue that in 2017, the Department of Health and Human Services declared this as a public health emergency because the American Psychiatric Association reported that 1 in 10 Americans have taken an opioid without a prescription, and 5% of American adults have abused or been addicted to opioids. When we take into account when most adults began abusing opioids, we find that the majority began abusing it between ages 16 and 18 in the study by Dr. Amy Yule. This is mainly because teens who are the most susceptible to abuse opioids, as it is the most accessible to them. Like other drugs, opioids can become gateway drugs to stronger opioids like heroin and fentanyl. These opioids are cheaper and twice as potent than normal prescription opioids, which are important factors in a young person's decision to start using them. This was revealed in a study by the University of Southern California that tracked a group of freshmen from high schools in Los Angeles for 3.5 years. They reported that around 11% from the 596 students that reported abusing prescription opioids went on to use heroin by the end of high school. Once addiction takes hold at a young age, the true costs of opioid addiction become evident later in adulthood if left untreated. Overall, opioid addiction has placed a heavy toll on the U.S., as the Council of Economic Advisors estimated that the economic cost of the opioid crisis was around $696 billion in 2018 and more than $2.5 trillion from 2015 to 2018. This is because people who abuse opioids require significantly more healthcare resources, there are higher costs to the criminal justice systems, and a loss in productivity and potential earnings due to incarceration, addiction, and fatal overdoses. Furthermore, it has also placed a burden on the world, as it was estimated by the World Health Organization that 34 million people misuse opioids for non-medical reasons, and 30 million people suffer from opioid use disorder. The world map in front provides us an illustration of how vast this issue is in a 27-year period from death rates from opioid overdoses. This raises concern for teens, as it is reported that 1 in 4 opioid overdoses involved teens. This led several countries to conduct studies to find the prevalence of opioid use in teens, which was an average of 11% prevalence. This could have many young people suffer the consequences of opioid addiction, such as HIV, which the World Health Organization reports a 5.2% worldwide prevalence of HIV among young people who inject opioids. Similar to the US, opioid abuse and addiction could have countries bearing an economic burden due to the high cost of healthcare, criminal justice systems, and loss in productivity. This raises the question, how do we reduce opioid addiction? Although there are several solutions to this, its primary focus should be using methods of prevention. In order to prevent opioid addiction from developing at a young age, it is necessary to educate teens on the dangers of opioid use. This can effectively be achieved by implementing effective school-based drug prevention programs such as Lion's Quest and Too Good for Drugs, which are the most effective but less used programs according to the National Center for Biotechnology Information. These school drug prevention programs can reduce opioid addiction use in teens by 8%. Although it is a small reduction, it is, however, very valuable since the social costs of opioid addiction are high. In addition, what makes programs like Lion's Quest such an effective tool is that it actively solicits the participation from the school, community members, and especially parents. That said, parents play a huge role at reducing teen opioid addiction. For that reason, parents need to be well informed on the dangers of opioid use so that they can educate or talk with their teens about it, as it was proven by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration that teens who learned a little or a lot from their parents were 42% less likely to abuse opioids. And monitoring their teens' activities and showing concern for them limited their probability of abusing opioids as shown by their table. This also ensures teens to practice what is learned from their school's drug prevention programs. Parents who are uninformed, however, can struggle to prevent or determine if their teen is in fact abusing opioids. This is when the medical system takes into place, as physicians can educate both the parents and teens on the dangers of opioid use, and also determine for the parents if their teens are indeed abusing opioids so that they can take the next necessary steps. The next step for reducing opioid addiction is medication-assisted treatment, MAT. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, this form of treatment has an 80% success rate as it combines medication with counseling and behavioral therapy. However, only 13% of teens with opioid abuse disorders actually receive treatment according to the Providers Clinic Support System. Because of the stigma that surrounds opioid addiction, teens with opioid abuse disorders will often not seek treatment as they are not aware of the risks they put themselves in from abusing opioids. That is why it is important for schools and parents to educate or talk with their teens about the dangers of opioid use and provide them with the needed support, as it was found by the Providers Clinic Support System that teens who were previously educated on the dangers of opioid use by either their parents or their school's drug prevention programs were more likely to seek treatment. If their teens are left untreated, they could face the negative consequences of opioid addiction sooner or later in adulthood. In short, it becomes evident that one solution alone will not effectively reduce opioid addiction or create a significant impact without the support of the other solutions. For this reason, local governments around the world should create local partnerships within their communities in an effort to reduce opioid addiction and its negative impacts by intervening at a young age. By implementing programs like Lions Quest that actively solicit the participation from the parents, community members, and schools, educating parents on the dangers of opioid use so that they can talk with their teens about it, and with the support of the medical care system to treat opioid use disorders, local governments around the world can reduce opioid addiction within communities. Thank you.
Woohoo! Oof. Man, let me tell you what. Let me hit. You did a great job, by the way. Let me hit the stop recording.